Lee Davis and Gwilym Roberts are the two IPs in a pod, and you are listening to a podcast on intellectual property brought to you by the Chartered Institute of Patent Attorneys.
Gwilym, another podcast. How are
I
you?
love them. I'm very well. How are you?
Well, even after all these years and all these many podcasts, you still love them.
I'll have to take a deep breath just before we start, and then we get into the roll and rolling, and it's roll. It's a roller.
They have just become getting some really nice people on, interesting people on, and having a conversation with them, haven't they? Which is great.
Honestly, the last few have been actually quite a blast, and I've totally forgotten it was a podcast, which can be a bit dangerous because you can end up all over the place.
That is truly dangerous, isn't it? That you do forget that you're here to properly record something that will go out to other people to listen, and that you're not just down the pub with mates. Which obviously sometimes we are when we're podcasting, and we really must do one of those again soon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But can we not do all of them like that? Honestly, it's just a great use of an afternoon.
It would be lovely to do so, but you're so rarely in the UK these days.
Oh, that's not entirely. Well, okay, I get away a little bit. I'm in Spain at the moment with the family. I think I've mentioned before the in-laws down by Cartagena near Alicante in southern Spain. So all very exciting.
So the only thing I know about Cartagena wasn't it in Romance in the Stone or something like that? There was an old 80s film.
Could be in Colombia. There's a couple. I did once try and book. I did once book a flight here, thinking, why is it 18 hours?
Am I not only in the wrong city, country, but also continent?
Got the wrong continent, but the right year, you're on the right decade for the film. So there we go. Let's be positive about that.
I do. How is Spain? Weather good? Weather looking after you?
Weather's nice, and I'm really enjoying it because I'm starting to find out what the local people do, and they do actually do things like go for paella together and have siestas. It's quite incredible.
I love how your pronunciation is so on the nose Spanish now.
There's a lot of pressure. I fly into Murcia Airport as well. I'm a lot of pressure not to mangle it, basically, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, I think we said on a previous podcast, wouldn't Beth now be one of your greatest critics when it comes to your pronunciation?
Oh, she just laughs at me, honestly. I make up words as well. I just make up. I was trying to get a straw for her yesterday from the cafe. I just made a word up, but I mimed it and it worked out what I meant. So there we go. I think the word for straw is pajita, and I think I said palito or something. She just said no. Whatever it is, we haven't got one of them.
Well, lovely to see you again. When are you back in the UK? When do I get to see you in person?
I'm back on Thursday, so I'm here for council next week.
Okay, council next week. Okay, we'll catch up then properly then. Should we get our guests on and do a proper podcast?
Yes.
So today we're looking at all things EDI, which I'll say equality, diversity, and inclusion or inclusivity. But I also know that equality and equity tend to be sort of used interchangeably in the E bit, which is always my big worry with EDI is that I use the wrong words at the wrong time and get it all horribly wrong. But I'm hoping that our guests today, Greg and Alex, are going to say to me, "No, that's fine. As long as you've got an open commitment to EDI, it doesn't matter if occasionally you muck it up." Greg, Alex, welcome to the podcast. Alex, you go first. Alex, introduce yourself to the listeners, because Greg's been on before, so they know him.
He's old news. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I was quite disappointed when I got the Zoom link. I thought I was going to be in the pub. This is when I've listened to this podcast. I swear you've always been in the pub.
We have been threatened by Andrea to get her onto a pub podcast, so maybe we'll do EDI 2 at some point this year and get Andrea and you guys on it.
Well, that would be nice. I'm just down the road from SEPA, so it would be perfect. Sorry, so my name is Alex Wood. I am the Deputy Chair of SEPA's EDI Committee, a European patent attorney at HGF. I've been in the profession for coming up to 7 years now. I think I've been part of the SEPA EDI since it was created right at the beginning with Greg. And yeah, I specialize in life sciences, but that's not very exciting for this podcast, but I just thought I'd throw it in there just in case.
Oh, I don't know. It is quite nice occasionally to get into sort of some of the techie legal stuff. So we might go there. And before Greg comes in, the interesting thing about the SEPA EDI committee is we did actually create it in response to a challenge from Andrea Brewster. lead of
Oh.
IP Inclusive, because I think we were becoming too complacent and too reliant on IP Inclusive to sort stuff out for us. And Andrea attended a council meeting, and the challenge was, come on, you're growing up now. Yet you've got a handle on what this EDI thing is. You need to break out a wee bit and do some of the stuff through your own thinking and your own creativity and your own engineering. And Greg very kindly said he would chair the committee. So, Greg, hello, who are you?
Hello, yeah, so as I'm old news, but yeah, I'm Greg Iceton. Chair of the EDI Committee, working out here in Germany and have been in the profession for 17 years and have been on council since 2016. So a council member all the way out here in the Deutschland. Yeah, so I think that, we started the EDI Committee, as you say, Lee, off the back of Andrea challenging us to make sure that we have something up and running, and make sure that we are representing our members, all of our members, and that there is a channel for us to discuss EDI related issues with council directly through the EDI committee. And essentially that's what we have done. We've set up the committee in 2021, and we are all working together to discuss hot topics that are important for our members, and also to ensure that SEPA internally and externally is well aware of these topics, and we can act on them.
And do you feel, can I just sort of touch on the council bit for a moment? Because I know when we first started to have these conversations at council before the EDI committee, when Andrea was very much sort of pushing at doors in terms of the work of IP Inclusive, sometimes the conversations can be a little bit strained and a little bit difficult. I think probably for the reasons that I said earlier about people being concerned that they get the language right. Have you found that improve on council? Have you seen council change in the way that it talks about EDI?
Well, I think that council has changed a lot since I started anyway. I mean, I think that the representation of people on council has changed a lot. I do feel that, it's a broad spectrum of people on council now, in-house, private practice. I think that the conversations that we're having now are certainly bettered by having an EDI committee, because then it's us bringing things to the table, having that slot in the council meetings to discuss EDI issues, things that have come up in the committee meetings and things like that. I do think it gives us a platform now to say, yeah, this is what's been happening, this is what we're going to do. Do we have council approval? All of those things. Whereas before it was a standing agenda item, and we'd probably just gloss over it because there was, unless there was something of absolute significance, we didn't really talk about all of the little things that perhaps we have been working on over the past few years.
So I think for me, and I will let Gwilym come in a moment, but he in part was responsible for this conversation. I think council showed its maturity around EDI at our meeting in February. Now, I'm not going to go sort of to the dark side in terms of talking about the politics of this, but we did have a conversation at council about the current spotlight that there is on EDI in terms of the noise to counter it from particular angles and perspectives. And I think what was refreshing for me was we had people sat around the council table that were prepared to have that difficult conversation, who previously wouldn't have contributed. So they felt sort of engaged and able to do so. And also there was consensus across council that now, particularly as IP Inclusive approaches its 10th anniversary, is a really good time to restate our commitment, not just for SEPA as an organisation, but also for us, the leadership, council, to do so individually. So I certainly have the intention to restate my leaders' pledge around my personal commitment to EDI. And I thought that showed a real maturity of thinking from council for it to be able to have that conversation and to want to be quite open in its declaration of its commitment to EDI.
I'm not part of council, so I think it's quite interesting to see perspective from someone who only kind of hears what happens at council meetings and feeds back. And I think I've definitely seen a change from like council's reactions to when we put forward as part of the SEPA EDI committee, put forward ideas. I find it's a lot more like stronger in their response as well. So it's not, sometimes it was always, I felt at least pushback sometimes. And I feel like now as a committee, we've got a lot more confidence in what we're doing and who we are now. I think at the beginning, the first couple of years, I think Greg, you'd probably agree with this. We were just trying to find our feet, what was SEPA EDI? how did we fit in with council? What was our role within SEPA? And I think now we've got a bit more confidence. Our ideas are being put forward with a bit more strength as well to council. And on top of that, we've had SEPA EDI members now join council. I know Claire is now a member of council. She was part of SEPA's EDI committee, again, I think from the beginning, Greg. So it's great to see, members of our committee go forward. I think that's a lot to do with Greg. I mean, he'll probably hate me for saying this, but I think he's a real inspiration. He came to it. He's been a plug for SEPA Council, telling us how great it is and to join. And having someone like him represent SEPA EDI means I think people from our committee have been more open to the idea of joining as well.
Thanks, Alex. That's really kind. I'm not sure that's true, but there we go. But
it is. I knew you would say that.
No, but I mean, I think that certainly, the EDI committee, when we set it up, like Alex said, we were finding our feet. And yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that now we have this sort of feeling that, we have the support of council, we have the support of you, Lee, and Gwilym at SEPA to be able to bring these things forward. It always feels comfortable, it feels safe, it feels like a good environment for our members to be in, certainly on the EDI committee. So, I mean, it's little steps, but we're getting there. One of the questions that I get frequently is, what's the difference between IP Inclusive and the SEPA's EDI committee? And there must be an incredible amount of overlap there, which we are fully aware that there is an amount of overlap. We have some people that are on the EDI committee at SEPA who are also members of IP Inclusive and active in IP Inclusive. We don't want to double down our efforts. We want to make sure that we are working together. And I think that after we've now found our feet, I think that one of the things that I would like to do with the EDI committee, and I'm sure Alex agrees, is try and strengthen our ties with IP Inclusive, maybe get those conversations started. Now I think it's an appropriate time that we start not merging together, but, like strengthening our ties so that we're in communication with each other. We're not treading on each other's toes. We're making sure that our events don't coincide with their events, things like this. And I suppose the thing about the EDI committee within SEPA is that, we're trying to look at our internal governance as well, not just, outward looking, which we're trying to see how we can change things EDI related within SEPA itself. So that, is a big difference. But again, that's something that we want to work with IP Inclusive with in the future. And the other thing that I think that we would really like to do is strengthen, as you said, Lee, like world stage of EDI is under the microscope. There's certain countries who are doing really well. And, I think that there are certain countries that could learn from others. And I do think that perhaps this might be the year that we need to strengthen our ties internationally and try and get those conversations going with people on an international level.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. Can I do something that's a bit unusual, Gwilym? I know you want to speak, and I will let you speak in a moment. But I don't often read from a script, but if it's okay with you and with Greg and with Alex, I'd quite like to just restate the current SEPA commitment to see if we're still comfortable with it and how we feel about it. So this is what we say currently about our commitment. So everybody belongs here. We exist in a global, multicultural world, and we want SEPA to reflect that. We want all our people, our members, our volunteers, and our staff to grow and thrive through their relationship with SEPA. Our focus on diversity and inclusion will attract talented people and will keep our people engaged and supportive of our work as a professional membership association. We will treat people fairly and equitably. We will ensure equality of opportunity for all our people. Above all, we will create an environment where our people, regardless of background or personal circumstance, feel valued. That still feels about right to me. I think other than restating that, I don't think we're far off the mark, are we?
No, I think that's, well, it's certainly what I stand for. And I think that it's what everybody else certainly on our committee have stood for, because we put it in our terms of reference.
Yeah.
It's an important commitment to have, and I think that we've nailed it there.
And I think it's continuous commitment as well. It's not something that we've achieved it and then it ends. It has to be a continuous effort.
Reflecting on what we did discuss at council, and I think is politics aside, there was pragmatics to it, but having that kind of original position really helps. And I think it shows the transition that we've seen, because the pragmatics of it is that DEI policies are not necessarily legal in some territories now, or potentially not legal in all aspects of them at least. And in particular, previously, when it's been a matter of saying to businesses, get more involved in DEI, there's loads of reasons to it. We've given lots of different reasons for it. We've said it's the right thing to do, ticks one box. We've said that it's diversity is actually improves the business, of course. We've said that it's very attractive to the next generation of graduates. Thank you, next generation, for bringing your conscience with you, which is really good. But we've also said, and realistically, when you come to pitch, for some businesses, it's a very important part of the pitch. What are your policies there? And that last one's changed a little bit because of the legal situation, shall we say. And so there's a risk that pragmatically business will say, clients don't ask for it anymore, so therefore we don't need to do it. And the lovely thing is that because we've got all these other reasons and because everything's become so embedded through that kind of reference pledges and through these commitments, definitely the position in council was, okay, it's still the right thing to do. We need to be careful. We need to actually not do risky things, but we can continue to do it. And so I think what's happened over the last few years is originally, I think through Andrew's amazing efforts, Lee, you've always been a huge champion of this for shouting everybody out. The following wind is there. So people kind of think it's okay, we can do things, we can keep within the constraints and still absolutely do the right thing. And it's been really good to see. And I think council, as you say, maybe a few years ago might have been slightly more focus on the straight pragmatics. Can't do any more, let's move on, as opposed to what can we do right. So I thought that was a really positive meeting and a really positive message. And Alex, I'm glad you're saying that that's percolating through, that people are getting that. And on that point, I mean, so one of the things I do with Andrew a lot is the senior leaders stuff. It's, kind of people who are in the position of being able to make decisions within their business. Making sure that they're bought in. How are you finding your interactions with the senior leaders in the profession? How are they doing?
I think some of them are scared. Maybe I'm saying this and they're not scared at all, but my general impression, I think some senior leaders are quite worried. I think Lee actually touched on it at the beginning about being scared about not doing the right thing, what to say, make sure you're saying the right thing. And I think some companies and some senior scared to have the conversation because they might think, oh gosh, we're not currently meeting EDI requirements, or it doesn't look great. I always urge them, you need to start. We're not here to say, oh, you're not very diverse. We're here to help. And if we can help you in any way, then let us know. And I find senior leaderships kind of nod and say yes, but it does require action. It does require you to act on your words. It's easy to say, yeah, we pledge a commitment to being diverse. You have to show that, you have to stand back, you have to think outside of your own situation and how other people within your business and within the whole of our profession feel. I think a lot of people only view it from their own current environment rather than thinking about other people and how they might feel, how they might be impacted by their decisions. So I think there's like a twofold thing. It's one is being brave enough to have the conversation in the first place and open up that discussion and that being welcomed and it not being a worry for them. And then the second thing would be once you do have that conversation, try and actually act upon that rather than just having a lot of words with no like kind of follow through afterwards.
Because I think this has come up a few times on the pod because we've done plenty of the kind of podcasts on this topic. And one of my perennial questions in terms of doing getting it right is also not so much, putting words into action, but just not saying the wrong thing. And that's definitely a generational issue I think, for me, certainly, is I want to help, but if I say the wrong thing, I might insult or embarrass the person I'm trying to be helpful with. And the lovely advice that's always come back is just be kind and you'll probably be okay, which is a really helpful piece of advice, actually.
Well, I think that we can, as human beings, right, we can all make mistakes when we're saying things. We don't intentionally mean them. It doesn't matter where we're doing it or what we're doing. We're human at the end of the day. And I think that as long as you have empathy and care for other people, then you will get there. And you might say the wrong thing, but it's perfectly okay to be educated and told, no, that's not actually quite the right thing to say there, and learn from it and move on. I don't think that there's problems with people making mistakes. I do think that what was funny is reading an article from Matt Dixon about is him having to change his accent when he started the profession. And obviously Matt Dixon, immediate past president. I think that when I started in the profession in 2007, I didn't even think about my accent. Just went into this profession unapologetically me, from the northeast of England, just like, hiya, all right.
It is an interesting point, Greg, and it's not something that's the preserve of the patent attorney profession. I don't speak now with the accent that I grew up with, and I don't speak with that because I went into further education leadership and I came into jobs leading professional membership bodies, and people didn't speak like how I spoke. And I mean,
Mhm.
most people can still get the accent. They still, sometimes I'll slip into colloquialisms and stuff like that. But the reality is, if I was speaking to my mum and dad, they wouldn't understand me.
Mm. This is actually a personal kind of passion of mine as well within the CPEDI is I went to university in Durham, and I remember I was absolutely astounded that there was like nobody from the Northeast actually at Durham University. I don't think I met anyone who actually lived in Newcastle or Durham when I was there. And I remember I turned up and I had the strongest Yorkshire accent going. I'm from Wakefield and I'd never left at that point. And I had a very strong Yorkshire accent. And I turned up at Durham and nobody sounded like me. And likewise, when I came down to London, when I first joined, my accent had faded slightly, but I still had a pretty strong Yorkshire accent. Um, and again, there wasn't really anybody with a Yorkshire accent at my firm. And it was kind of like a funny joke that we had that I needed like subtitles, but thankfully I was like very like warmly welcomed at my firm. So it was always in like jest. But I remember thinking, actually, this is quite astounding that I haven't actually met anyone really yet in London that is a patent attorney that is from Yorkshire. And then the recent CEPA EDI results that came out, we did the survey. I was amazed at how many patent attorneys are in the southeast of England. I think it was something like 45% from the southeast of England or something. I'd always had that perception that more patent attorneys were from the southeast of England, but I never really had like, maybe I thought it was my personal, situation that made me feel like that. But actually, the results show that that is true. And I'm really eager now to, make sure the whole of the UK, we get from all over. I work for HGF, which is a predominantly northern-based firm, and it's interesting now to see how it changes across. So now that I've moved firms where the kind of head office is Leeds, how that has made I'm now more open to probably have more northerners than we do southerners here. So it's just interesting, like how working at HGF now, it's not uncommon for me to hear a Yorkshire accent.
Yeah, and to be honest, because I'm from Teesside originally, and
Mhm.
I think that, had I not gone to I went to university in Stoke-on-Trent, also has an accent. And, when I went down there and I was a smoggy, everyone's like, oh, who's this guy? I'm like, why is he talking like this? And honestly, I don't think, had I not removed myself from Teesside, I would be a patent attorney today. Had I stayed in Teesside or even in the northeast of England, Newcastle way, like gone to do physics and astrophysics somewhere else other than Kiel, I genuinely don't think that I would have become a patent attorney because I don't know that the opportunities back then in 2007 were available up in the north of England as predominantly as there are now. And
Mhm.
I think that that's something, as an EDI committee, I've always said this from the start, haven't it, Alex? Like, there's a lot, the spectrum of EDI is so broad, and the breadth is, we also want to look after socioeconomic divides and
Mhm.
north-south divide, even within the profession. And it's the whole breadth of spectrum of things under the umbrella of EDI is there, and it's something that we really want to try and we're not going to be able to fix it all, but moving from one topic to the next, we can try and get some more awareness up in the north of England that this is an opportunity for people with STEM subjects.
It's really interesting. So what I'm hearing and reflecting on there, Alex and Greg, is so EDI is multi-strand, multifaceted, isn't it?
Yeah.
But sometimes if you focus on one part of it, you can address all of those. And what I'm hearing is that social mobility is probably the big factor here. And actually, if you get social mobility right, you probably by extension start to get the rest of it right. Is that fair?
Yeah, I say so. I think that that's
Yeah.
fair. It certainly opens up the opportunities to a lot more people. Yeah, I think that that is fair. Maybe that's
Yeah.
something that we need to prioritize.
Flipping it around, I suppose what you might say is that stepping back, having talked about this in lots of different countries now, actually, funnily enough, with different people and about their different things, different countries have completely different angles on what needs fixing. You know, States definitely very different from over here. Europe, again, very different. I think if we point to the weird one for us, it is class. If you want to jump to the real battle. And I had a talk with some Scandinavian clients about this. And I said, what about kind of my social mobility and the whole class thing? And they said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, the power of the accent and the power of the Southeast, whatever it might be, or, or the education system, all that. And it really wasn't an issue for them. They're really interested to hear it. And they're fascinated by my conversation and about different accents and how that does have an impact in the UK, obviously for worse, not for better. But I suppose the bottom line is that there's different problems in different places, but they're equality problems in their own different ways. And so if the social mobility is the problem here, but it reflects into all the other different diversity areas as well, because there's a problem underlying the social mobility thing that can be different in different countries. But the accent thing's particularly interesting, I think, because personally got a weird accent. I actually had a Wolverhampton accent until I was 9, full on proper Brummie accent. But then I obviously moved out to Hong Kong and ended up with this slightly weird accent here. And Lee, I remember you telling me that your kids said you sound really different on the podcast. So
No, absolutely. Yeah.
We make these corrections. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
You mentioned that as well. The CEPA EDI committee and Greg and myself are not able to solve all of these problems within the CEPA EDI committee. I wish we could. Probably cure world hunger whilst we're there. No. Yeah, I don't think it's we're not going to solve this like a classic, well, whatever it might be. We're not going to address all of it within our committee, but I think it's just I'm always felt like I wanted to be an advocate in that respect, that everybody is welcome. You don't have to have an accent. You don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to be anything. As long as you want to join the profession, we'll always welcome you. And that's the general concept I try personally to put out. I try and pull that through the EDI committee, that everyone is welcome. I try to be more representative for everyone, so everyone can maybe see themselves within CEPA. There's someone that they might see themselves in, if that makes sense. So if, let's say, someone from Wakefield decides, oh, I fancy being a patent attorney, or someone from Yorkshire, and they might hear this podcast, they might think, oh, well, look, here's someone from Yorkshire, or in Greg's case, Newcastle, look, now hopefully they're more likely to join, or hopefully they feel more welcome here as a result of that. So yeah, I'm not naive enough, I suppose, to think we're going to solve all of the class issues and everyone suddenly is going to go to university and do a STEM subject and become patent attorneys. God, I hope not, because that'd be quite a boring
that's
world.
The dream. No, that's the dream. That's the dream. Everyone does STEM and becomes a patent
attorney.
Run away. No,
yeah. I'm not sure how much of a fun world that would be if we all became patent attorneys.
So I'm conscious of time, and at the moment we've been doing sort of helicopter view stuff, haven't we? We've been sort of up there in the clouds, looking at the big picture. On a day-to-day basis, what's currently taxing the committee, Greg? What are your 2 or 3 biggies that you're currently looking at?
At the moment, we're still working on the reasonable adjustments from the PEB that have been altered. We just want to make sure that they're up to scratch and that we are leading as gold standard on the reasonable adjustments there. So there's still a bit of work to be done on behind the scenes, but Alex and I are on top of that.
In collaboration with the new EQEs as well, we're hoping to open up that door as well.
Yeah.
Reasonable adjustments conversation for the new EQE exams as well.
And yeah, sorry to cut across it there, but in my experience, there's always been a disconnect between how reasonable adjustments are treated in the UK, which historically seem to be really, really good, and perhaps with the EQEs, where maybe the perspective on what a reasonable adjustment is has always been a little bit different, because obviously the view across Europe is, as I think Gwilym said earlier, people look at EDI differently in different countries.
Yeah, I think it's hard for the EQE secretariat and the exams system for the EQEs, because they don't have a set country that they're following that defines disability, that they can follow. It's an international organization, and as a result of that, it's up to them really to decide what they do, and they have to try and fit into all of the different countries and make sure they're not treading on anyone's toes. And I think up to now there hasn't really been a set policy, or at least a published policy. So it's just trying to work with them. Like we say, we hope the UK will lead by example
So sorry, Greg, I cut you off there. So reasonable adjustments, number one. What else is on the radar?
I guess what else we're trying to do is we're trying to get some events, regular events, or well, not too regular, but every quarter or every half a year, we're trying to set up some events that are EDI related and perhaps won't be a happy hour in a pub, but might be somewhere of cultural importance and make it a rather interesting evening rather than just going to the pub, which we're hoping to do this year. Alex, you're going to be speaking at the
Empower Her event.
Empower
I
Her
think
event.
with the events angle, just now we're more comfortable with what the committee is and what we're doing, just making people more aware that we exist really, and just showing people that we're here, and we're here if you want to reach out, if you've got any ideas that might help SEPA. I spoke at SEPA Congress. We hosted the pre-conference event at SEPA Congress, and I spoke there on behalf of SEPA EDI. Likewise, I'm chairing the SEPA's EDI event for women in IP, Empower Her event as well. There's some amazing people speaking. I'm very honoured to be the chair for that. So yeah, that's on the 6th of March. So yeah, just making people more aware that the SEPA EDI committee exists, as well as hosting our own events.
Yes, no, the other thing that we're looking into is the making sure that we have a good representation of speakers at events and things and webinars and seminars and things like that. Now, we can't do that alone as an EDI committee. So I suppose this is an appeal from the EDI committee here to anyone who's listening who would like to volunteer, be a speaker at webinars or seminars or regional events, to please get in touch with SEPA, and then we can have a look and sort of have a good representation of members at these events. But it does require volunteers and people that are willing to give up some time to do these things. And I think that if we all work together, we can give a good breadth of membership at these events.
Oh, and we're currently organising the SEPA EDI journal.
Oh, yes, we are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah, it's going well, actually. Yeah. We've got quite a few people lined up giving articles. We are very excited to announce that hopefully on the edition that we are sending out in April, there will be a text to speech function on the website, which would then enable everyone to be able to listen to the articles. So it's going really well. We will have a new section which will be Meet the Council Member, and I'll start that one off and see if we can carry that through journal editions. But after about 20 of those, it might get a bit boring, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, we'll do Meet the Council Member, and then of course in the journal will be the usual bits of patent law and the legal stuff. So, but it should be good.
Oh, well, thanks both for coming on. It feels to me like we're coming to a conclusion, and bang on time, if I may say. It's almost like we're getting good at this, Gwilym. It's almost like we're getting good at this. Just before we close, though, we always give our guests the opportunity to do this. Are you sat there thinking, "Oh, we didn't get the chance to say this," or they didn't ask that question? Is there anything else you want to squeeze in? Is that a no?
I've got one thing I could squeeze in.
Oh, go for it, Alex.
For me, it's just, well, the first is a plug for the SEPA EDI committee in terms of people wanting to join. We haven't really welcomed any new members for some time now, Greg. I think you'll agree.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very eager to make sure we're representative across the whole of SEPA. So please, if you're listening to this, I suppose, and you don't have to be a patent attorney in private practice to be part of SEPA. You don't even have to be a patent attorney. If we welcome everyone from trainees, paralegals, all of you, please feel free to join the committee, in-house, private practice, whatever your role is within SEPA. It would be great to have more people join the committee who are eager to make a change and help the committee. And my second thing is just to say that if anyone, I appreciate the current landscape we're in. EDI is perhaps taking, let's say, a bit of a hit. Just know that the SEPA EDI committee remain dedicated, and we're still here. We'll still continue to champion diversity within SEPA. We still stand by everything that we are as a committee. And if anyone feels like they need to talk to someone, the SEPA EDI committee are here, and we're here to listen as well if they want to speak to anyone. And that's my plug.
Yeah, and that's a really lovely plug to end on, Alex. I think that's It's important to say, isn't it, that the committee is there as much to listen and to
Yes.
support as it is to be a sort of like an activist engine for SEPA in that sense. Oh, thank you both for coming on. But Greg knows that we've always got something up our sleeve at the end, because we don't.
Oh, no.
We don't just end this podcast like that. Oh no. We normally have some sort of tangential question at the end. Don't worry. So Gwilym and I have just been having a chat in the chat, and when we have like a serious, I know we've approached this with a degree of sort of lightheartedness and humour, but it's quite a serious subject, and I think it deserves a closing question that doesn't take us too far off beat. Okay. So earlier on, you were all talking about how your early experiences of university went, and whether that did or didn't involve a change of accent, or did or didn't mean that you could visually see people who were like you. And it got me to thinking. So I'm going to ask Gwilym first, because I know he's a physicist, and we've talked a lot about his physicism in the past, if that's a word.
Yes, it is. It's a word.
It is now.
It is now. Yeah.
But I don't know why he's a physicist. I don't know why that was your sort of subject of choice. So get ready, Alex and Greg, because it's coming your way. Why physics? Why was that your go-to?
I was quite geek, believe it or not, at school. But academically, I was always I was not on any sports teams, but I was normally quite good academically, and I was actually quite good on the English side as well. I may have mentioned I won a couple of poetry prizes at school.
Oh.
But when I was in junior school, and I was there was always me and this lady who was a girl then. She's now a flautist with the Munich Philharmonic, I think, or something, called Jenny Nan Caro. Hi, Jenny. Not spoken to you since I was 11. Remember your name. We always got up against each other, kind of first and second in the class. And at the end of junior school, Jenny Nan Caro got top in English, and I got second, and I got top in science, and she got second. And I packed that away. I forgot about it, but the outcome was I always thought I was a scientist first because of that, literally because of that. So when I got to my choices for GCSE and for A-level, I mostly went down the science route because I was a scientist in my head. And then when I actually did like physics, it was great. I got to university, about a year and a half in, I asked myself the same question: why am I doing this? And I thought, oh my God, it's because of Jenny Nan Caro.
Wow. There was an answer I wasn't expecting. So I'll try and pin that into my memory now. So you are a physicist because of Jenny Nan Caro.
I hope she listens to this.
So do I.
I'm
freaked out that Gwilym knows everything about it.
I know. He's dedicated his whole life and career based on when she was 11.
Greg's going to try and find her in Munich now and point her to the podcast.
Do you know Gwilym Roberts?
So, Alex, what did you do at uni, and why did you do it?
So I did biology at Durham University, and mine is a bit more close to home at that. So my mum is a mathematician, and she's very inspiring as well. My mum, she's one of the first people to do maths, a master's in maths at university that she went to. And I always thought I was going to be a mathematician, and I tried to follow in her footsteps and did maths and further maths at A-level, and then quickly realised I'm not actually that good at maths. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have to pivot away from this. I'm not sure I can. I try to keep up with her, but I soon realised she's naturally gifted at maths, and I'm not. So thankfully, I had science as a backup, and at that point, I was, physics wasn't really for me, and it was always a toss-up between biology and chemistry, and I was tempted to do biochemistry. Durham doesn't really allow in your first year, combined sciences. They're quite strict in that you have to pick one, so I ended up picking biology. And since then, I just became fascinated with the human body, what it's capable of achieving, and then it just carried on from there. Really found out about the patent attorney profession through this bioenterprise module that they do at Durham, which is it's such a good module to take if you're at Durham. If you're at any university, it's a business and science module essentially, and it's really good. You kind of have like a startup company, and I think I learned more about the world and how it works from that module than I did my whole university degree, and it was really good. And that's how I ended up really in the patent attorney profession. Couldn't be a scientist, so did biology instead, basically.
Also fab that you discovered the patent attorney profession whilst you were at university rather than after. So it's Greg, you and I have probably had this conversation before.
Yeah, we have. I know we have. I can't believe you're doing this to me.
But I've not done this deliberately. Come on, tell your story.
You sure? Yes. So when I was finishing at school, I thought I'd like to go to university. I really wanted to be an airline pilot. That was the first thing that I really, really wanted to do. And when I finished school, I was like, I really want to be an airline pilot. And I knew that I needed to have a science degree to sort of bolster my chances of becoming an airline pilot. And then when I was looking through prospectuses for universities, I came across Keele University because they're one of the only universities in the country that allow you to do two completely different subjects joined together. And it's a dual degree. At that point, I decided that I would like to try to be the Prime Minister on the moon. So I started doing astrophysics and politics whilst I was at university. It just turns out that I was really, really bad at politics, like really bad at it. And then in the end, I had to go and beg the dean of the physics department to allow me to do astrophysics and politics. No, sorry, astrophysics and physics, because apparently I was really good at physics, but really, really bad at politics. So I dropped politics and carried on with physics and astrophysics. And in my final year, that was where I went down to the British Airways cadet scheme in Bournemouth to do their interview tests and things like that, of which I passed all of them and everything was all good to go. But then, unfortunately, due to medical circumstances, they couldn't allow me to continue in the process. They did invite me to pay for myself, which would have been £150,000. Of which I didn't have that money. Who does? And then as I came back from Bournemouth to Peel, I saw a notice on a notice board saying, "Have you thought about being a patent attorney?" And I had not. And at that moment, I did. And then the rest is history.
It's a great story.
Astonishing. So I think Darth Sidious started doing astrophysics and politics when he kicked off as Emperor of the dark side of the universe. So you're putting in good footsteps there.
I'm just fascinated that Greg seems to think that you need to be good at politics to be in politics.
Yeah, quickly realised that that's not true. And also wasn't very good at it anyway. So maybe I could still be Prime Minister, who knows?
So I know bounced the question. I've actually forgotten what the question is, Lee, but bouncing it back to you.
So I was asking you three why you chose your your original kind of career trajectories in terms of why you studied for the subjects you did at university. I didn't go, Gwilym, so you can't ask me that question.
Lee, why did you? I know the answer. I know the answer to everything because you've done enough podcasts. There's not a lot of backstory. Why did you get a tortoise?
Why? Where was that coming from?
I don't know.
Wait a second.
I know why
did you just say? Why did you get a tortoise?
I know why he became a plumber. I know why he went into education. I know why he went to sea because we did that in the last blooming podcast. The only thing I don't know why he got a tortoise. I'm just trying to keep the flow.
I have a sneaky suspicious feeling that we did do this question really early doors in the podcast. You might remember it when I start to tell you the story. So I used to take number 6 child, number 2 daughter Evie to her sort of like preschool thing, junior, before you go to infant school and stuff like that. And I always used to get talking to like the parents at the gate, and I was speaking to sort of the parent who was probably Evie's best friend at that time at school. So she's doing 4 or 5, whatever it was, and she just said, "Oh, I rehome tortoises." And I had always wanted a tortoise, having had one when I was a child. I've had several when I was a child, and they all met their ends horribly through disastrous accidents at home, like a wardrobe falling on top of one.
Oh my gosh!
And yeah. And another one turning itself upside down for far too long at the garden before we found it, and it sort of like suffocated itself and stuff like that. Yeah, so I always felt guilty about my previous ability to look after a tortoise when I was a child. And I thought. And this woman was talking about this tortoise that she had that had a bit of a wonky mouth. It had a bit of a deformed shell and all of these kinds of things. And I just felt that I was destined to adopt this tortoise. So yeah, went round to our home that evening and adopted him. Bizarrely, because we've got his birth certificate, his hatching certificate, whatever as you call it. Discovered when I went to pick him up that he hatched on the day Evie was born. So they share a birthday, they share an age, which means I can always remember how old he is. So he's 17 at the moment. He'll be 18 this year. We need to do something to celebrate his his birthday. And for those who don't know, his name's Albert Treacle.
Albert
Is
Treacle.
Evie happy that she essentially is being that she shares a birthday with the tortoise? How does she feel?
Oh no, she loves the tortoise. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
good. I was just
Yeah.
checking.
They bond over it. We don't do this obviously, but it just seems a funny thing to say. We stick a candle to the top of his shell out the garden so she can go out and blow the candle out.
Complete roller coaster of an answer, Lee. Thank you very much.
That was
Although I
so
Dramatic, it
funny.
was funny, it was poignant, it was everything.
I have now thought of a way of not losing him out the garden. If I do stick a big candle to his back, then one, he can't roll over, he can't turn himself over, and two, wherever he's in the undergrowth, we can see him because he'll have a big candle going around.
Get one of those. Remember in Starsky and Hutch, they used to stick the flashing light on the car. One of those.
Light on top.
Yeah, it might be
Yeah.
safer than a burning flame.
Yeah, that might be how your next tortoise meets its end. If it's not a wardrobe
Oh, fire!
or it falling on its back, it'll be like you
Sets on
burnt it
fire.
alive.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my God.
I'll forget that one then. Okay.
There was just one thing that I maybe want to say. It's a little quote from this week's SAG Awards from Jane Fonda, but I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen it. I love it. You say it, Greg.
So she said
From what awards, Greg? Sorry,
from the SAG Awards,
I don't know what they are.
a Screen Actors Guild Awards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Jane Fonda was picking up a Lifetime Achievement Award, and she said in her acceptance speech, "Empathy is not weak or woke, and by the way, woke just means you give a damn about other people."
And I'll tell you what, Greg, you've possibly given us the little caption for the podcast when we publish it.
There we go.
I'll make a note of that. Oh, thank you both so much for coming on. It's been
Thank
really
you.
No, not at all. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, the time's flown by, which it always does when you're having just an engaging, friendly conversation with people who really know what they're talking about. And Gwilym.
Oh, the cheek.
So I just need to do my little close at the end, which is if you've listened to the podcast and you've sort of found it as fun and interesting as we have, then by all means leave us a little review on wherever you pick your podcast up from, and that means that more people will find us. Thanks all. Cheers, Alex. Cheers, Greg. See you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.